Not sure what colors to pick for your next project? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Today I'm sharing 4 ways to find the color palette for your next project. Hello, and welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a weekly yarny podcast where I, Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, talk yarn. That's what we're doing today. The weather has decided to be unkind and go back to summer temperatures, but I am not a fan. So I'm going to try to pester it into going back to fall by wearing fall things. Today I'm going to put on my Arlet cowl. This is a gorgeous cowl that I made up in a mini skein set by Dragon Horde Yarn. To wear this today, since it's still warm outside, I think I'm going to try to fold it in thirds. So I fold the bottom in, and then I'm going to fold the top in around it. So I end up with this little tube, a smaller tube of yarn. And then I'm going to slip it over my head. And then just to keep it real like smushed down, I have one of my favorite shawl cuffs from Sunrise Grove. And I'm just going to wrap that around the side to help keep it down and away from my neck so I don't get too hot. Got to make sure the bumblebee shows. All right, so let's talk yarn. Today's question says, I'm so excited for the mystery cowl, crochet along, but I'm trying to use up my stash. Do we have to buy a kit to participate? And how do I make my own kit, if not? So this was such a great question. No, you absolutely do not have to buy a kit to participate in the mystery crochet along that is coming up in October, which you guys, you'll be here before we know it. I have teamed up with Cornbread and Honey to make 4 really gorgeous kits. We have Foxy, which is an orange and neutral kit, perfect for fall. We have Kaleidoscope Festival, which is bold, bright, kind of neon-y colors. We have Autumn Floor, which is very deep pinks, purples kind of situation. And then we have Birds of a Feather, which is kind of, I'm calling it kind of the neutral one. It's got a really bold yellow, but then it's got soft blue and a pretty taupe and a gorgeous speckle. So those are the kits. If you're interested, I'll have a link to that below. But I totally understand that a lot of people already have things in their stash that they love, and so they'd rather start by building a kit with what's in their stash, and you can absolutely do that. I'm going to talk about how to build your own kit for the mystery crochet along, but this technique can apply to picking yarn for any project where you need more than one color. So I'm going to go ahead and start by explaining 4 methods that you can use when you're starting completely from scratch. And I realize that this person is not starting completely from scratch, and so after I give these 4 techniques, we'll go back and talk about what do you do if you have a couple skeins and you need to build out a full kit. So the very first step is deciding where to start. And to me, this can be the hardest part, because once you get started, it's a little easier to kind of get rolling with adding things, but picking that first skein can seem daunting. For specifically the mystery crochet along, 3 of our 4 kits have a speckled yarn in them. And so the first place I would encourage you to start if you're picking yarn specifically for the mystery crochet along is maybe start with a variegated or a speckled yarn. However, I know that not everyone is a fan of variegated and speckled yarn. So if that's something you would prefer not to have, it is not a make or break of the mystery cowl pattern. So you do not have to pick a speckled yarn. Let's go down the path though, assuming speckled is what you're picking. So once you've picked a speckled yarn, I would build your kit around that speckled yarn. So go ahead and take a look at the speckles. Hopefully there are several colors of speckles in there, and you can start grabbing the colors of the speckles that are most appealing to you, because that will really bring out the speckles within the speckled yarn, and it adds an extra cohesive factor if the speckled ties in all the other colors. You can pick one of the colors of speckles and then go with a light yarn and a dark yarn. I will give the tiniest hint that there are some stripes in our pattern, and so you're going to want a couple of your colors to be something that looks nice together and has good contrast, because there's nothing worse than working a bunch of stripes and then being like, oh, you can't even see them, so what was the point? Could you leave out stripes and do that section all in one color? Sure, you probably could, but then you're gonna want probably 2 skeins of one of your colors. That's how you can build off of a speckled colorway. So now let's say you don't want speckles. I have 3 other ways to go ahead and pick your starting yarn. The first way is to just choose your favorite color. What is a color that every time you see it, you're like, oh, yes, I have this like deep tealy green that every time I see it, I'm like, that's my color. So it just brings me joy. So that's a great place to start, with something that brings you joy. But what if you're like, I like all the colors and I don't really have a favorite color? I have 2 other techniques to help you pick that very first skein. The first one is to go to your closet. This mystery cal is going to be a shawl, and so that's something that you're going to want to wear with clothes that you own. So go to your closet, take a look around. This may even involve kind of like pulling things out of your closet or your drawers and kind of just seeing what you have, and maybe noticing that the things that you wear the most, there's a theme in color, and you can absolutely start with those. Now, I think a lot of people think color and they think color, but I was talking with my youngest today, and what did he call them? The not color colors. And what he meant was neutrals, like grays and blacks and whites and creams. All of those could just be your color palette. So if you are in your closet and you're like, look, neutral's my jam, I love me a good taupe, and give me shades of taupe, then go for it. Do 4 shades of taupe. That would be perfection. But you could also say, oh gosh, I have lots of neutrals, and wouldn't it be great to have some pops of color? So then you know you can add some more maybe bold colors or a specific palette, and it'll match everything you have. If you look around your closet and you're like, I don't know that this is a great representation of myself, then another option for choosing a color palette might be to look around your house. I could definitely go to some different rooms of my house and pick out specific color palettes based on the decor of a room. Once you've picked your first color, then it's always great to go with a color that kind of contrasts. So let's say, like me, you probably start with a blue. I love a good blue, but if I take the blue and I add another blue and then another blue and then another blue, unless their shade varies quite a lot, so I've got a really dark blue and then maybe like a cobalt blue and then maybe like a robin blue and then like a super soft, barely there blue that's like maybe almost white or almost gray, those colors are going to have enough contrast to be mixed together in the same piece and be able to see all the pieces. If you end up with like a navy blue, a dark blue, a slightly lighter blue, and a super deep green or something, that may not have enough contrast to really make you feel like each piece of your shawl or any pattern that you're working is really going to shine. So contrast is key. Then when you go to pick your 3rd skein of yarn, I recommend an unexpected pop. I love an unexpected pop of color, a color that maybe either wouldn't be something you would normally wear, or might be, let's say you've picked several shades of blue, maybe you throw in a pink or a yellow or something just a little different that really adds a bit of sparkle to your color palette. And then if you're unsure of what to do for your last color, a neutral is a perfect option. Depending on what you have, you may choose either a dark neutral like a black or a deep charcoal or an intense chocolate brown, or you may choose something really light like a cream or a very soft gray. A couple other quick tips for choosing color palettes, friends. Pinterest is an amazing place for color palettes. So you can type in fall color palettes, color color palettes that have 4 colors in them, color palettes that include blue and yellow, color palettes that, I don't know, that are inspired by nature, and it will spit you back out a bazillion color palettes. And a lot of times those won't just be inspiration pictures, but they'll actually have the boxes of color that they've pulled from an inspiration picture to give you a specific color palette. And if you pull one of those up, remember, you don't have to stick to it exactly. So let's say you search color palettes including blue and yellow. Let's say you get a really gorgeous color palette that includes a blue, a yellow that you love. It includes a taupe that you think is gorgeous, and it includes I don't even know, a sage green or something. And you're like, meh, I don't really like that. You can take the colors you love and then add another color that you like. A real easy way to add would be a neutral of some sort. Pinterest is a great place to go searching for color palettes. How much contrast you want in your project is totally up to you. It can totally change the feel of a project to have really bold contrast or to have a super subtle contrast. And all of those can work really well. You just need to think about what you would prefer. I could absolutely see the mystery cow pattern working with both a bold contrast, which is my personal preference, and a more subtle contrast throughout. Once you've decided which is your preference, go ahead and take the yarns that you are choosing or that you're thinking about choosing between, and then take a picture of all of the yarns together. This is perfect to do when you're shopping at your local yarn shop. Lay them all out. Take a picture with your phone. All phones today have some filters on them, including black and white filters. And this can be a great way to just turn your picture into black and white and get an understanding of the tone and shade that can be a little harder to process just by looking at them in color. You'll easily be able to notice which colors are light and which colors are dark once you turn that photo into black and white, and that can help you maybe make some decisions on how much or how little contrast you'd like. Okay, so let's say you have a skein or two in your stash already and you're like, that's gonna be my starting point. Where do you go from there? First of all, that's very exciting because you already have the hardest step done, the beginning. There are several ways that you can build off of that one skein you have. If it happens to be a speckled yarn, go ahead and use my tips for picking with a speckled yarn. If it is not, then some other great tips for coming up with colors that would go along with that is to go back to your closet and see if you have any patterned pieces of clothing, or not even patterned, but just clothing with multiple colors on it that has that color in it. And then you can easily take other colors. I'm thinking if it's a floral pattern and it's maybe got flowers in a couple colors plus a background to the fabric, you can just grab those colors and make your shawl out of the exact same color palette that is in the fabric that you already love in something that's in your closet. If you love the idea of finding a fabric to help you pick your color palette, but you don't wear a lot of prints, this would be a great option to take your skein to a fabric store or a quilt shop and go ahead and use those fabrics to try to come up with a color palette for your shawl. Another great way is to go back to Pinterest. You have an option, and so you can type in color palettes that include whatever color you have. And then you'll get back a whole bunch of color palettes that include that one skein that you already have. I hope those tips and tricks give you a great starting point to build a color palette, whether it's for your shawl, for the mystery crochet along, or for just any fall project you're starting up right now. I do have a little bonus question for you. Let's take a look. Do my yarns have to be from one dyer or one company? I think the easiest way to build a color palette, especially if you're using hand-dyed yarns, is to stick within one dye company or dye house. However, you absolutely do not have to. So I'm thinking about how I have 2 skeins of DK weight yarn that are absolutely gorgeous, but I bought them when I was on a trip. And the whole purpose of of me buying those specific skeins was not only that they were beautiful, but I always try to avoid buying things that I could purchase at my local yarn shop. But I know that I have 2 skeins, and if I was going to make a shawl out of this for the crochet along, I'd need 4. What I would do then is take those 2 skeins that I already have to my local yarn shop and try to find a really good match for them. You absolutely do not have to have the same yarn dyer. The things that I would be looking for, and keep in mind as you mix and match different dye houses or yarn companies, are these few things. Number 1, look at your fiber content. You want the fiber content between your yarns to be as similar as possible. And even above and beyond that, especially if you're shopping in person, take a look at the actual physical characteristics of the yarn. What does the twist look like? If you're mixing a single ply and a 3-ply, those yarns have very different characteristics and pretty different looks when they are worked up. So you may not want to mix and match those. Once you've looked at the fiber content and the physical characteristics of the yarn, it's important to check the yarn weight. I've told you before, and I'm going to tell you again, yarn weights are not a specific standard, they are a range. And so it's super important that you don't end up with a couple DK weight yarns that are on the heavy side and a couple skeins that are on the very light side of DK weight. You'll find that keeping an even tension and gauge is going to be really hard, mixing things that are so far apart on the weight category scale. So a simple way, but not fail-proof way, to compare those is to go ahead and compare the yards to the number of grams. And just make sure that you're comparing the same number of grams, because some skeins come in 50 grams, some skeins come in 100, some skeins come in 115 or whatever. So get an equal amount of grams and then compare the yardage. If you're within a few yards, you're probably good to go. All right, let's talk small businesses. I am drinking from my Jean Ann Deemer's pottery mug here. Love the bold black and white. I am wearing these stunning and lightweight earrings in this gorgeous deep fallish colors. And these are by Gorgeous Jewelry. So super fun. All right, I have a little show and tell for today. This last weekend was one of the most wonderful times of the year. It was the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival. And you guys, I got to go with 4 friends from my local yarn shop, and we had a blast. We started off by watching the herding dog competition. We understood none of it, but it was impressive all the same. So fun. I have like a soft spot for the dogs that have like the patches of black and the white down their face. If you watched a couple episodes, I have my memorial mug of Duncan and Cooper, and you'll notice they both have that marking on their face. So these border collies were just like, oh, so adorable. After that, we went into the breed barn, and this is so cool because they have so many adorable things in this barn. One, they have the baby lambs that were just born, and some of them were born like just a day ago. They were so tiny and so cute. They also have a super cool display in this barn that is just fascinating to the yarn nerd in me, and they have pens set up with different breeds of sheep in them. Each sheep has an information sheet so you can read about the different breeds, where they're from, what their lineage is, how common they are, what kind of wool they produce. And then a lot of them had the opportunity for you to see what their fleece looked like unwashed, what it looked like washed, and then some of them even had what it looked like when it was spun up into yarn. It was really cool to be able to put different breeds with an actual sheep. A lot of the sheep in the breed barn you weren't allowed to touch. The sheep weren't, they're not pets, so they weren't really interested in interacting with the people, but there were a few sheep. One was a sheep that got milked regularly, and it came over to me and just like mouthed at my fingers. The owner was like, oh, they're looking for treats. So I got to pet its little snoot a little bit while it checked me out. And then there was another sheep that, oh my gosh, you guys, it was like a dog. It just like leaned up against its pen and let everybody scratch its ears and its back, which was so neat. And then you guys, one of the sheep owners had Great Pyrenees puppies. Oh my gosh, they were so cute. If you know what a Great Pyrenees is, they're this white dog that's often used as a livestock dog for protecting livestock on a farm. And so obviously bringing them into my suburban house is not a great plan. Also, they are enormous and very, very furry. So we got to see lots of cool things, had lots of great education, and also lots of great shopping. You guys, I really think I had pretty good self-control, but I do want to show you the few things that I bought. I showed you back at the beginning of the summer that when I spent some time with some friends in Chicago this summer, we worked on some needle felting and I fell in love. I really need to find the time to get back to it. And especially now that I bought a needle felting kit. This company, Felted Sky, had the most adorable booth. They had both 3D things that you could make and flat pictures that you could make. It was so hard to choose, but I put evergreen trees up on my mantle in the winter, and so I thought that this was a really good place to start. Another friend of mine that went with me got a felting kit as well, and so we said we're going to hold each other accountable and get together and work on these together. The other non-yarn thing that I got was a solid lotion bar. This is by Floppy Ears Farm, which is such a cute name for a company. They are from Wisconsin, and I gotta figure out where they sell locally because this is just, I love a lotion bar. Oh, this one smells amazing. So definitely gonna be using this. Now for the yarn. All right, I have been eyeing this company for a while because they are a local sheep farm and wool manufacturer. So this is Utopia Yarn, Utopia, and 100% gonna take another field trip and go visit them. This is their Sustain-A-Wool, which is all sustainably made. I think they did it using scraps. That's why it is sustainable. And so I chose a DK weight. It is 230 yards for 100 grams, and it is Midwest fine wools, including Targhee, Rambouillet, Merino, and CVM. So I chose these really bold colors. Well, I guess this is really bold. And this color is called Radioactive, which makes perfect sense. And then this one is called Astral Projection. I don't know if you can see on the camera. Maybe I'll take a picture and put it up so you can see, but they both have a bunch of little speckles of different colors, and that's really what drew them to me. They're just such a depth of color. They're really gorgeous. And then for my last purchase, I got a mini skein set, and actually these are not mini skeins, these are half skeins, so they're 50 grams. Let's see, I'm going to show you this way because you get to see the whole skein. This is fiber optic yarn. This is a 6-pack of their cashmere yarn. It's superwash merino, cashmere, and nylon. It is so soft, and it's 6 skeins at 140 yards each, and so a total, wait, no. I can't math. It's a total of 8 ounces, which means that 3 of the skeins is 4 ounces, which is 100 grams. So 100 divided by 3 is like a third of 133 grams. So they're fingering weight. And then I wanted something to go with it. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I do already have a plan for these. And I needed, I'm going to call it a background color. And so I got this guy to go with them. And this is called Storm. And it is the same yarn base. So they will go really nicely together. So fingers crossed that my idea works out. You guys, I want to put a little pressure on you. If you have the opportunity to go to a sheep and wool festival, I know that everybody talks about Rhinebeck, but like unless you live in New York, it's very hard to get out there. So you do not need to travel far and wide for yarn festivals. There are a lot of them all over the country. So I really want to encourage you to do some Googling and check out a yarn festival that is local to you. It was so much fun. The vendors were wonderful and kind. The people who owned the sheep just wanted to talk to you about their sheep and loved that you were interested in their sheep. We met other crafters and yarn dyers and people who made spindles and people who were excited to talk to you about weaving, winding, spinning, spinning your own yarn. It was just such a wonderful experience. So take a friend, don't take a friend, get out of your comfort zone and go visit a fiber festival this fall if you can. That's all I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful. I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that we can see each other again next week. Maybe even share this with a friend who might need a little help picking out their color palette. I hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you back here next week, and happy crafting!